Afternoon, anyone watching this on Facebook Live. We are working through a couple different technical issues for our policy meeting agenda, and we'll begin shortly. Tiffany, what'd you guys decide? Is Kim okay?
She's going to use my computer, and I'll just listen.
Okay.
What
Here.
can I have though?
Do this for right now. They need you more than me.
Okay, hello, everybody.
Hello.
Pat just came in, so I think we're ready to roll with him, right?
I think so.
All right, Mr. Corbett, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Let me real quickly get the scorecard up here. Have had the chance to review your currents and match them with our, let's see here. There we are. You have the most recent update that we issued a couple of weeks ago. Kim has downloaded them to your site. And I can walk you through those. There are several you won't have to bother with. So that'll streamline things a little bit. If you have questions on any of them, please ask. We can take a look at your currents and match them up with our templates. So in this update, there are 3 separate packets. One is just the regular update, which is on topics based on changing legislation, auditor questions, those kinds of things. The second package in there has to do with some revisions to your EDGAR policies based on recent changes to federal regulations that were enacted in August, went into effect in November of 20. And then the third set is some catch-up work we were doing, trying to ease the burden on you with regard to the non-discrimination anti-harassment policies and pull them into sync with the most recently released Title IX non-discrimination policy 2266. So any questions you have on any of those are fair game today. We'll walk through those. The first one in your 39 number 2 packet is policy 2240, controversial issues. We made a change in 39 number 1 back in September, October on a couple of policies based on the religion provisions of, I think it was, let's see here, House Bill 164. There was a remaining reference in 2240 that prohibited students from religious expression except for like lunch period and non-instructional times. That clause was stricken by House Bill 164, so our suggestion is that you remove it from your policy, and we've done that in 2240. 2260.01 is your student section on 504 ADA accommodations. Late spring of 20, OCR got very much involved, particularly as it pertained to vocational education, career tech. They waded into some career tech centers, and knowing that you do some comprehensive programming, We made those changes in your 2260.01, along with some of the same definitions and terminology that deal with compliance officers and non-discrimination from 2266. So there are a number of revisions included there. The thing that I would point out to you is that there is now, with OCR, added emphasis on comparable access to programming for career and vocational education students. So we've added that language that they were rather insistent upon. We made 2 revisions to policy 2266, and I know you just adopted that. Number 1, we made a revision that was necessary because there was a change in definitions. When we issued that back in July, there were 2 definitions out there regarding sexual harassment, specifically with regard to rape. One dealt with the Clery Act definition that was only in effect through December of 20. Then there is a new definition that comes from federal sources that went into effect in January of 21. In the original version that we issued back in July, we offered both definitions and an explanation of that difference. The other change we're suggesting has to do with appeals, and we're suggesting that you modify some language there. It's just one sentence, but just as with other disciplinary actions, you typically do not impose discipline until the appeals process has been exhausted. So we've modified that. You certainly should and may impose accommodations for both the complainant and the respondent, but those would be supportive actions as opposed to disciplinary action. So we're suggesting that revision in 2266. The other question I had for you, and it's simply a question. I believe when you adopted 2266 in January, you included the provision for hearings to occur during the decision-making process. The hearings component can be rather litigious and very challenging, both for the district as well as for the complainant, particularly. And you are not required to provide hearings. Higher ed is required, but K-12 is not. And I believe you included the hearing provision in your policy, and would just suggest that you may want to look at that and be sure that you're trained, you're staffed, you're prepared to move forward with that component of it. It's not required. Neola does not suggest it, and many of our clients are deferring on that component of it. But that's your call, and we've provided options and language that will help you implement that, but we know that it will become very time-consuming and costly for you to do that in an appropriate manner. So point that out to you. Moving along, policy 6144. You modified that in November of 20. You added the 10-year maturity option for certain investments. But there's a provision further in that document that needs to be modified, because it says that you may only invest in 5-year maturity options, as opposed to the exception that was just recently enacted by House Bill 251. We have a revision to our policy template 6146, post-issuance compliance for tax-exempt and tax-advantaged obligations. You do not have that policy in your collection. It was really provided for districts that did have that kind of financial underpinnings to capital improvements or new construction. Apparently, when we issued it, there was no interest or need for it in Parma at the time. So you don't have that policy, so it wouldn't be necessary to revise it unless you take a look at it and feel that you need it. In policy 6220, budget preparation, we modified that in two ways. And it's entirely up to you whether you take it or not. It's not required. We modified it, number one, based on client request. A number of clients wanted a provision in policy that provided for a budget reserve. Having lived that life for a number of years, I preferred to work directly with my board and establish a budget reserve provision as opposed to embed it in policy. We know that circumstances change. We also know that collective bargaining has certain expectations and there are implications for the budget with regard to those provisions. If you establish specific budget reserves, you advertise dollars that may be available for collective bargaining purposes, and it brings pressure to bear on the district leadership team and the board as to how you deal with that. I think it's important to have a budget reserve, to maintain it. How you advertise that is certainly your choice. And if you want to do it in policy, we've given you optional language that you may include. The other change we made to this policy really comes at, again, client request. A number of our clients have said, you know what, our county no longer requires a tax budget hearing and process that goes with that. I don't know what Cuyahoga County's process is with regard to the tax budget. I know it was an annual ritual that we kept for many, many years, probably more to the chagrin of the county folks than to the district folks, but we simply modified it to be more encompassing to budget preparation as specifically to the tax budget. In policy 6600, again, this was at the request of clients because of audit questions. The auditor has insisted that school districts have language that deals with any discrepancies in cash collected at various points of transaction. And the template didn't have language that spoke to that. We've added language. It speaks to documenting it. You may want to take a look at that if that seems to be a question. The other piece of that is a prohibition against providing cash back when checks or credit cards are offered in lieu of cash at those collection points. The auditor doesn't think that's a very good idea to be giving cash on a transaction that may not be legitimate all the way around. Policy 7440.01. This is one you might not be interested in. I would suggest you take a look at it. Your 7440.01 is district specific. It deals with body-worn video systems, whereas Neola's template deals with video surveillance and electronic monitoring. The change we made was to allow for the use of electronic monitoring as a part of the evaluation process, which originally was not intended to be a part of that. Given in the last 12 months the significant expansion of online learning, virtual transactions, we've seen where that may be the only way that you get an opportunity to observe and to monitor lessons being taught. So your policy 7440.01 is district specific. It deals with entirely different content. So our suggested revision would not apply to that. We have a policy in there, 845001, dealing with face masks, face coverings. You never took the original, so you don't have that as policy. I suspect you have included that in your return to school plan and the procedures that you have in place. We made revisions based on the latest Ohio Department of Health and CDC revisions to the use of face masks and their recommendations. 8500 food services. You last revised that in July of 20. We have added language, two pieces worth noting. Number one, as we did with all of the non-discrimination anti-harassment policies, we modified the reference to transgender status to simply gender status. That was at the suggestion of advocacy groups. They said the use of trans is inconsequential. Gender status is the term they prefer. So we made that accommodation in this policy as well as in a dozen others. The other piece is there is a very strong audit concern dealing with the way the district deals with unpaid meal charges, and very strongly wanting to avoid any stigmatizing of students who are unable to pay meal charges. And therefore, we've added language that meets the USDA investigator, inspector, reviewer preference that language be included. Your call. We also have language in policy, in Administrative Guideline 8500D that deals with how you deal with unpaid meal charges. Last policy in this group, 8510 Wellness. You last updated this policy in September of 2015. We've updated it now twice since then and suggest you take a look at what is included there. U.S. Department of Agriculture and the lunchroom officials have made some changes in their regulations. You are required to evaluate your program at least every 3 years, and they strongly suggest you use this WellSat 3.0 evaluation tool. There are also some additional changes in the Healthy and Hunger-Free Lunch program that deal with providing free access to water during the lunch period and throughout the school day. There are some of the same concerns with regard to unpaid meal charges. And also, I will tell you, the investigators are looking for any reference to school level advisory committees that work with the district level advisory committee with regard to both evaluating as well as implementing the district's wellness program. So we've made those language adjustments for you to consider. In that same package, there are two administrative guidelines, 6146. You don't have that policy, so you don't have that administrative guideline either. And then also the AG 8500D, the procedure for the collection and payment of charged meals. Some revisions there.
Okay, Pat, before we go on, I just wanted to point out that the 8450.01, you said that we did not adopt that, but we did.
Oh, okay.
So I think the revisions to that now was removing the word cloth.
Yes, that was.
Okay.
Plus, we added some exemptions there that were added by the Ohio Department of Health shortly after we issued that policy originally.
Okay, we'll take a look at it then.
Okay. And I don't recall if I got those to you back in September when we had our last meeting or not, but they're in there this go round. So you might want to take a look at those.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, Kim?
No, I think that's it for that part.
Okay. Let me jump to the easier one then. Our Edgar 2.0 revision, policy 6114. We issued that revision back in October, and your latest revision is June of 16. The Office for Management and Budget made some changes in definitions, specifically with the allocability of costs to a federal program, as well as to the period of performance for a federal program under which federal charges may be made and program activities may occur. So I would suggest you look at that one.
And I think we did pass that, and Neola rejected our policy that we approved.
I think there were some options that were not responded to in that one.
So we did update it. We did pass it since June of 16. It just Neola didn't approve it.
I will take a look at that and get that one back to you. I know our folks did look at it. I think there were some blanks that had to be filled in that were left blank. And we tell our processes, don't make decisions for the clients because you don't know who they want to have do whatever it is being requested. So I'll follow up with you on that one.
Well, actually, it first came back to us, and then they accepted it, but then it was different than what we had. Or am I getting that mixed up with 64?
It might be 2266, because I know there were at least two in there.
I think, yes, and then they accepted 2266. That's right. The other one that they didn't, that Sean, I think, is referring to was procurement cards.
Oh, that was 6423 or 4? And that had blanks.
24. So it's in a file that says, please complete.
There were some blanks in there as far as who does what, or some options to be either selected or deleted.
Yes.
So I don't think it's 6114, the one that we're talking about, is it?
I don't see that one, no.
I thought that was approved, but
Well, I would have to look a little bit further, but it's not in that folder. And
Okay.
Originally 2266 was in that please complete, but then they accepted it and put it
Right.
through. So 6114, I'm not sure on. We can check into that a little bit further on our own then.
Let me know how you want to go with that one.
Okay.
All right. 6325, we also issued back in October. No changes to it. We just put it back in this update because many districts did not take action upon it. You last modified this policy in March of 20, and we issued the revision in October of 20. So I'm not showing any action on this one. We made definition changes and procedural changes and threshold changes as prescribed by the feds. And significantly of note, it includes the Buy American language that your USDA folks and your lunchroom auditors are checking for. So that would be important to have. The other piece that we last did was had to do with how you spend money with the ESC. You did not take that language at the time. It apparently wasn't necessary. But if you wish to purchase services from the ESC, at the dollar level that would require you to go to bid or secure competitive proposals, the state of Ohio adopted language that would preclude you having to do that. So we provided that earlier on and added to it with this last update. Two others in that same packet, 7450 inventory. You last updated in June of 16, along with our update. The feds changed some language. They require you to reconcile records in a certain period of time, and it speaks also to how the sale of property that may be acquired with federal funds. So that would be worth looking at, along with 7455. This, I kind of shook my head at. It's accounting system for what originally was fixed assets, what we've always referred to as fixed assets. The feds changed that term to capital assets and modified several definitions. So we made those changes and offer you that revision. If we go back to the 11 policies on non-discrimination, anti-harassment, what we tried to do with those 11 policies was to bring definitions and language and terminology to be consistent with the new language on policy 2266, sexual harassment for Title IX. We tried to make the reference to days be consistent. Over time, our attorneys have used school days, business days, calendar days, intermittently, and we thought it was important to make that consistent. So our reference will consistently be to business days. We've tried to make the reference to complainant and respondent consistent. We've tried to bring your timelines into some semblance of consistency with the way in which you deal with all of these very similar kinds of actions, albeit each one a little bit different and needing some attention. Kim, these are very tedious revisions to make once they give you the go-ahead.
On those, yeah.
I'm happy to help you with those. My suggestion would be, instead of what we normally suggest, is that you work in your current and bring our language over.
Yes.
We're kind of suggesting with these, it will be easier if, and we've identified where you have district-specific language or choices made, you bring your current over into the template. It'll just be a whole lot easier for you in doing that, and I'm happy to work with you online or in person in getting that done.
Okay, I did start and I got a couple of them done, and it did take a long time, but I was doing it the way we always did, so.
It's easier to take your current over into the template,
Yes, okay,
because we've done all the work in there, and I know how tedious it is because I've done it. So,
yes. I thought, oh boy, this is taking a while.
yes,
Okay, I'll touch base with you before I go any farther then.
great, sounds good.
Okay. I guess.
Sean, we'll check on 6114 and get back to you on that one. Are there other questions for me?
No?
We appreciate the briefing, Mr. Corbett.
I'm sorry it is so tedious and cumbersome, but we're playing catch up on a number of fronts, as you well know. And I know that you have many other challenges that you're wrestling with, and we'll help you as best we can with these and answer questions you may have on the other.
We appreciate it. Thank you for the support.
Sure thing.
Okay, thank you.
Kim, anything else, or is that it? We just go to work on
We
these.
didn't have anything. I'm gonna check on 6114, because I think Sean's right. I think that they did reject it, but I can't find it anywhere.
Okay.
So I'll
Okay.
let
Take a look, let me know, and I'll follow up on it at my end.
Yeah, I found on my, I have a tracking sheet that I use, Pat, and I did find where we had submitted it. Our board approved it on January 28th, but then it was
Okay.
sent back to us, but I can't find where they sent it. So I'll do some research.
Let me know what you got. We'll follow up.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
You wear the name tag Tiffany Stropko very well.
I wouldn't go that far, but